Welcome back to Starz Recapped, your one-stop destination for breaking down the most thrilling movies in the most gripping way. Today, we dive into the dark, pulse-pounding world of The Shadow Edge 2025, a film where every alley hides a secret, every shadow whispers a warning, and one man's past threatens to swallow an entire city. In a world ruled by corruption and fear, a mysterious vigilante emerges from the darkness, armed with nothing but his skills, his rage, and a cryptic message etched into the city's underbelly. As the line between justice and vengeance blurs, the true danger begins to surface, and trust becomes the deadliest gamble. So, stay with us as we unravel the hidden clues, shocking twists, and razor-sharp storytelling of The Shadow Edge. This is Starz Recapped, and the story begins now. The film opens deep inside the central hub of China's intelligence agency, where tension hangs in the air. For months, analysts have been trying to pin down a mysterious crew responsible for a series of flawlessly executed bank heists. Each robbery leaves the authorities humiliated, always one step behind. Tonight is no different. Police cruisers tear through the streets in pursuit of the elusive gang, while intelligence operatives track every movement through their vast network of security feeds. But the chase collapses in seconds. One of the criminals, Simon, a prodigy in coding and digital warfare, breaks into the surveillance grid, wipes the cameras clean, and leaves no trace of their presence. As dawn arrives, the group prepares for the operation they've been planning for weeks. Among them is an elderly man, deceptively frail in appearance, moving with the silent grace of a seasoned warrior. He slips past street cameras without triggering a single alert, strolls casually into a small cafe, and blends in as if he belongs there. Meanwhile, Officer Wing and his partner head to the residence of a local businessman named Larry, claiming urgent police business. They convince him to accompany them to the bank to secure the access codes to his account, warning that his funds are in immediate danger. Larry, panicked, agrees and follows them without hesitation. Back at the bank, the gang storms the building, but strangely, no one is harmed. They aren't there for chaos. They're waiting. Their entire plan relies on Simon breaching the bank's digital vault and rerouting Larry's fortune. Each member stays linked by earpieces, awaiting commands. The old man from the cafe finally speaks through the comms. He isn't just another member. He's the leader, the strategist, the shadow behind every move. Calmly, he warns the team that law enforcement will reach the bank in 5 minutes. That's all the time Simon has left to finish the hack. With a few final keystrokes, Simon shuts down the last of the surveillance cameras, plunging the entire area into digital darkness. Their escape path is now invisible, but their window is shrinking fast. Time is slipping away like sand through their fingers, and tension fills every corner of the bank. If Simon fails to crack the final layer of the system, the entire crew will be caught red-handed. But at the very last moment, Simon breaks through the firewall and funnels the stolen fortune into their hidden account. Just as the transfer completes, Wing, Larry, and a squad of officers arrive outside the bank. The old mastermind immediately warns his team through the comms, telling them to abort and disappear. Inside the cafe, he stands to leave, only for a barista to accidentally snap a photo of him while taking a picture of another customer. She apologizes, unaware of the danger she just invited. Inside the bank, Wing senses that something feels off and orders everyone to stay where they are. The old man instantly shifts the plan, commanding the gang to split and escape. Chaos erupts as officers rush in, but the gang overpowers them, traps Wing inside an elevator, roughs him up, and bolts out. Wing, stubborn as ever, breaks free sooner than expected and resumes the chase. The gang hurls themselves off the rooftop with parachutes. With no hesitation, Wing grabs a terrified construction worker and leaps too, crashing onto a bumper below. Bruised but determined, he sprints after them again. Back at intelligence headquarters, analysts track the gang's movements and warn Wing that the criminals are heading toward an amusement park. Police reinforcements close in, but the crew battles through them with brutal precision. To shake their pursuit, each member scatters in a different direction. Officers comb every corner, but the criminals seem to vanish. Whenever suspicion rises, the gang simply changes disguises on the spot. Simon cracks into the hotel surveillance grid once more, forcing Officer Lin to order all units to switch to body cam facial recognition. But Simon is always one step ahead. He alerts the team and tells them to avoid any lens they spot. Wing finally spots one member, Sheng, recognizing him only from a unique earring. Simon immediately warns him, and Sheng slips into a dressing booth. Moments later, he walks out disguised as a woman and joins a group of girls, disappearing effortlessly into the crowd. As night falls, a grand show begins at the amusement park. A massive mechanical tree rises dramatically from beneath the ground, drawing cheers from the audience. Everyone is dazzled, except Lin, who notices the show started earlier than scheduled. In that single moment of distraction, the gang leaps inside the structure and vanishes completely. The trail goes cold. Meanwhile, Larry enters the bank to check his account, only to discover it has been wiped clean. He explodes in rage, shouting at the police officers standing helplessly around him. Back at Intelligence HQ, the director demands answers from Wing and Lin. They explain that this crew is unlike any they faced, masters of strategy, disguise, and digital warfare capable of breaking into even intelligence systems. The director has had enough. He orders them to bring the gang in immediately, before the embarrassment becomes public. Lin reveals there is only one man capable of matching the gang's skill. The director's eyes narrow. "You're talking about Hobie, aren't you?" "Yes," she replies. Wing protests. "Hobie was your mentor, but he's the same man who got his partner killed and ruined our biggest drug bust." Lin insists it was a tragic accident and that they have no other option. The director, after a moment of silence, nods. "I don't care about his past. Bring him in. We need that gang caught." The following morning, Intelligence decides to assign fresh eyes to keep track of Hobie. They send Elena, one of their newest officers, along with her partner Chung. Even though she's qualified and sharp, the senior officers treat her like she belongs behind a desk rather than in the field. So surveillance duty is dumped on her with little respect. Lin trails Hobie from a distance as he takes his dog for a walk, ducking behind cover before he notices her. Elena heads to his usual tea shop, the place he visits every single day according to their intel. She sits at a corner table, irritated that her assignment is babysitting a man old enough to be her grandfather. A few minutes later, Hobie walks in. Without hesitation, he approaches her table, his expression calm. "Don't you get tired of spying on me?" he says. Elena freezes. She tries to play dumb, pretending she has no idea what he's talking about. But Hobie gently dismantles her lie piece by piece. He tells her exactly how long she's been watching him, mentions the 3 jacket changes she made, and even points out that the man who rode the bus with her is the same one shadowing her earlier. She's speechless. Then Hobie adds quietly, "Even your eyes gave you away." He offers his hand, and in that moment, we learn their connection. Hobie was once her father's partner, the partner who didn't survive their last mission together. Elena reveals the last time she saw Hobie. She was just a child. When she asks how he recognized her, he says she carries her father's face. Finally, she drops the act and admits the truth. Intelligence needs him back. The next day, Hobie walks into headquarters with Lin. Inside, he requests that they replay the bank robbery footage again and again. After several loops, he pauses a single frame and circles multiple individuals with a marker. "These are the ones you're after," he says confidently. The entire room is stunned. Hobie managed to identify the gang with ease, spotting details everyone else overlooked. Meanwhile, at the gang's hideout, Shun embraces Simon, revealing they are brothers. The old mastermind arrives and immediately lashes out at Simon for allowing himself to be caught on camera at the cafe. Shun steps in to protect his brother. The old man's anger fades, but his warning remains sharp. One more slip, and the consequences will be severe. Back at Intelligence, they gather every piece of unedited surveillance from the day of the robbery and project them onto a massive display. Wing suddenly remembers the cafe worker who accidentally snapped a picture of the old man. He orders his team to track her down. At the hideout, the old man prepares food while speaking with Shun. He reminds him of the day Shun saved his life and how he gave Shun a new life in return. But then his tone darkens. If anyone uncovers who he truly is, he vows he will end them himself before the police can. Later, Hobie finally sees the photo of the old man retrieved from the cafe. His eyes widen with recognition. He tells the team that this man may be the infamous Shadow, a legendary former officer, known for being invisible in every sense. 15 years ago, he pulled off 3 massive heists and vanished without a trace. Now, it seems he's resurfaced. Hobie proposes forming a covert spy unit to smoke him out, but the director immediately dismisses the idea, believing modern surveillance technology has replaced the need for old-school espionage. At the training gym, Wing tries to get under Elena's skin by throwing a cheap insult, implying women belong in the kitchen. Elena doesn't hesitate. She floors him with a clean combination of moves he never saw coming. Hobie watches from the sidelines with a quiet smile, impressed. He tells her she has the same fire her father once carried. The following day, Hobie makes a decision. If intelligence won't approve a spy unit, he'll build one himself. He handpicks a small group, Elena included, and spends the next 2 days drilling them on observation, memory techniques, and silent communication. When the crash course ends, he announces it's time to finally track the gang down. The team spreads across the city under new code names. Elena rides at Hobie's side as his second set of eyes. Meanwhile, the Shadow gathers his people. His voice is firm but warm as he tells them that, above all else, they are a family, money comes second. He apologizes to Simon for losing his temper earlier. Simon later visits the orphanage where he and the rest of the group were raised. Only then do we learn that every member of the gang grew up under the Shadow's care. They aren't just criminals, they're the children he raised from nothing. Back on surveillance duty, Elena begins to feel useless, while the others take on action-packed tasks. She sits behind screens, waiting. Hobie notices her frustration and tells her softly, "You're the keystone, our winning hand. Without you, this whole operation collapses." At the hideout, Shun trims the Shadow's beard. The older man senses hesitation in the way the blade hovers near his throat and asks him plainly whether he plans to kill him. Shun immediately denies it. The Shadow tells him he has always been the closest thing to a son, and that once they secure the money, he hopes Shun finds the peaceful life he deserves. Elsewhere in the city, Elena spots a young woman being harassed by a group of thugs. Instinctively, she reaches for the door to help. Hobie warns her, "Stay in the car, call it in." But she ignores him and rushes out to fight the men herself. They quickly overwhelm her, and just as one of them is about to stab her, Hobie appears and takes them down one by one. Afterward, he tears into her. She could have blown weeks of work in a single moment. Furious but scared, she snaps back, saying the mission feels pointless. 2 whole weeks and nothing to show for it. Hobie's expression softens. He tells her his longest surveillance case dragged on for 8 months, the same mission where her father lost his life. She reveals what she's held inside for years. Because of Hobie's mistake, she went almost a full year without seeing her father. He died before she got the chance. Hobie finally tells her the truth. During that mission, he disobeyed orders trying to rescue a kidnapped girl. In doing so, he left her father alone with a dangerous criminal. Her father was shot, and Hobie never learned whether the kidnapped child survived. The guilt has followed him ever since. Hearing this, Elena's anger melts into understanding. She takes a breath and agrees to trust him and to follow his lead from now on. While monitoring a crowded marketplace, the team spots a man whose posture, movements, and presence resemble the Shadow. They quietly spread out, blending with the crowd. Elena studies him through the rippling reflection of a water bucket and confirms it's him. They trail him into an elevator. Suddenly, the man turns, a blade flashing in his hand, the tip pointed straight at Elena. Before the situation explodes, Hobie steps in, acting like a protective father scolding his daughter for wandering off. In one swift, subtle move, he removes her earpiece and slips on a pair of earrings equipped with miniature cameras. To gain the Shadow's trust, Hobie offers him an apple, harmless on the outside, but containing a hidden lens. As the Shadow takes it, the camera captures a perfect shot of his face. They keep up the act, pretending they all live in the same apartment complex. Their casual chatter convinces him, and he leaves without suspicion. The tiny camera in the apple records the elevator panel, showing exactly which floor he gets off on. That night, the team installs discreet cameras, locates the apartment he entered, and even collects his trash. Among the rubbish, they find shredded documents, but they can't make sense of the fragments. To get closer, Hobie tries a different tactic. The next day, he accidentally bumps into the shadow again at the market. After some friendly small talk, Hobie invites him for dinner. The shadow accepts. Inside the apartment, they cook side by side. The shadow glances at Hobie's rough, calloused hands that look like they've held weapons more often than kitchen tools. Hobie smiles and claims he's been a hotel chef for a decade. The shadow doesn't press further, at least not openly. Later, the conversation shifts. The shadow asks Elena about the faint scar on her forehead. She invents a story about a childhood scuffle. When Hobie returns to the room, he delivers the exact same explanation word for word. Without hearing Elena's reply, she freezes, stunned. That scar was a secret no outsider ever knew. When she quietly asks how he guessed the story so perfectly, Hobie finally reveals the truth. After his marriage fell apart, he fell into deep debt, afraid dangerous people might come after his ex-wife and child. He secretly checked on them every single day, watching from a distance to make sure they were safe, even though they never knew he was there. Elena's eyes soften. The tough exterior she always saw in Hobie cracks for the first time. Feeling the heaviness in the air, they shift the conversation to lighter topics, letting the moment settle quietly between them. After dinner, the shadow thanks Hobie and Elena for their hospitality and quietly slips out into the night. Once he's gone, Elena turns to Hobie and expresses her gratitude for what he revealed earlier. Hobie simply replies that looking out for her was always his responsibility. She leaves him there and heads straight to intelligence headquarters. Meanwhile, Simon sits alone at the gang's hideout, clearly cooking up a new plan, one that looks dangerously impulsive. Back at headquarters, the surveillance team keeps their eyes glued to the live feed from the Shadow's apartment. There he sits, calm and still in his chair. But then a knock breaks the silence. Expecting Elena, the Shadow opens the door, only to find Shun standing there in a mask. Without warning, Shun lunges at him. A brutal fight erupts inside the apartment. Simon watches everything unfold in real time through the gang's private camera system. Yet at intelligence, the monitors continue showing the Shadow quietly drinking tea, unmoving. Something feels wrong. A sharp-eyed agent spots the slightest flicker in the feed, a tiny frame glitch. That's when they realize the horrifying truth. The footage is looping. The gang has hacked their system and overwritten the live feed. Panic erupts in the control room. Teams mobilize immediately to reach Hobie and the Shadow before it's too late. At the same moment, Simon alerts Shun that the police are closing in. Shun disengages, slips away, and as he flees, he runs straight into Hobie, who had rushed to the scene. They clash violently. Shun manages to overpower Hobie just long enough to escape into the night. The following evening, the Shadow makes his way to the old orphanage, his true home. Hobie and Elena tail him from a distance. On the drive, Hobie finally cracks the mystery of the shredded paper they found in the trash. The numbers weren't random. They were Braille, a secret communication method used by the gang. And the message points directly to the orphanage in the capital. Just as Hobie prepares to report the discovery, headlights explode behind them. A car rams their vehicle violently, flipping it and sending them crashing into the barrier surrounding an intelligence outpost. Meanwhile, the Shadow arrives at the orphanage, only to walk straight into an ambush. A group of armed men wait in the dark, weapons raised. We learn Simon orchestrated the attack, convinced the Shadow has become a liability now that the police are onto him. Thinking the old man will be easy to eliminate, they close in. They couldn't have been more wrong. The Shadow's eyes harden as he reaches for a blade. In moments, he moves with lethal precision, faster and fiercer than anyone expects from someone his age. One by one, he cuts through the attackers, merciless and unshakable. As the last man falls, he growls, "When I was young, I wiped out over 200 officers in one night. You really thought a few street thugs could finish me?" The room falls silent. The beast has awakened. After a brutal night, the chaos only deepens. Somewhere on the outskirts, Hobie and Elena find themselves locked in a deadly clash with the same crew that rammed their vehicle moments earlier. The attackers strike without mercy, but Hobie reacts faster, taking down 2 of them before they can even reload. At intelligence headquarters, the surveillance team spots the ambush unfolding on a nearby street cam. Realizing their agents are outnumbered, they deploy backup immediately. Within minutes, reinforcements arrive, and after a violent exchange of gunfire, the remaining assailants are wiped out. Meanwhile, miles away at the old orphanage, the shadowed old warrior, battered, bloodied, barely standing, has already laid waste to the entire squad sent to silence him. Bodies are scattered across the floor as he drags himself forward, only to find Sheng waiting calmly in the center of the abandoned hall. Simon, watching from a remote feed, urges his brother to retreat, but Sheng ignores him. He steps closer to the old man, weapon drawn. The old fighter asks, "Is this your idea or your brother's?" Sheng answers coldly, "I act on my own," and lunges. The 2 collide in a whirlwind of skill, each strike echoing through the empty building like thunder. At the same time, Elena manages to radio Chang, revealing that the strange codes found earlier were actually Braille messages, all pointing to this very location. Police units race toward the site. Inside, the duel rages on. Suddenly, Sheng grabs the old man in a crushing hold, and together they tumble from the second-floor balcony. The fall is brutal, but the shadow rises first, dragging himself forward. With the last of his strength, he overpowers Sheng, choking him and driving a blade into his side. Sheng, fading fast, looks up at the old warrior and whispers that he hopes to be reborn as his son if there's a next life. Then he glances toward a hidden camera, his final signal to Simon. The old man understands too late. The entire structure is wired with explosives. Before he can move, the charges detonate. The orphanage collapses in a roar of fire and dust. When the police arrive, they're stunned to find the shadow still alive beneath the rubble. Gravely injured, he is taken into custody. Back at headquarters, the team is heartbroken and furious, realizing the core members of the gang had been there the entire time. A citywide manhunt begins. Officers go after the fleeing criminals one by one, ending each confrontation with overwhelming force. The gang is steadily dismantled, all except one, Simon. He slips through every checkpoint, altering his appearance again and again, blending into the crowd like a shapeshifter. Elena spots him and gives chase, but he changes looks so rapidly that pursuing him becomes a nightmare. The hunt is far from over. Meanwhile, far from the chaos in the city, Wing is escorting the old warrior, known only as the Shadow, in a reinforced police van. The officer can't resist taunting him. "So after everything, it all comes down to you, old man," he sneers. The Shadow lifts his head just enough to give Wing a cold, dismissive stare. Suddenly, Wing's phone vibrates. It's an incoming call from Simon. Wing, curious and hoping to trace the number, holds the phone to the prisoner's ear. Simon's voice trembles with rage and grief. He warns the Shadow that he will come for him, that he will take his spirit the same way the Shadow took his brother's. Then the line disconnects. The Shadow lets the phone slip to the floor of the van. As Wing crouches to grab it, the old fighter strikes with surgical precision. Within seconds, he disables Wing, disarms the guards, snaps Wing's arm cleanly, and disappears into the night. Back in the city, Elena continues her desperate search for Simon. She recalls Hobie's lessons: observe everything, miss nothing. Chang catches up to her and hands over a fresh earpiece to replace the one she lost. As she walks off, Chang suddenly spots a familiar figure entering a crowded mall. Simon. Determined, Chang tails him quietly, but just as he closes the distance, someone emerges from the shadows behind him. It's the Shadow. Without hesitation, he slashes an artery in Chang's leg and watches him collapse. Then he slips inside the mall after Simon. Moments later, the two men face each other. Simon freezes, stunned that the old warrior survived. In a panic, he draws a knife and lunges, but the Shadow moves faster. He grabs Simon's wrist, twists it, and drives the blade right back into Simon's chest, pulling him close. He holds him in a final embrace, then lets the lifeless body fall and disappears into the crowd. Outside, the police capture the remaining gang members, but when Elena spots Chang on the ground, she rushes to him and calls for an ambulance. Despite their efforts, he doesn't make it. The following morning, the battered team gathers in the hospital, tending to wounds both physical and emotional. Once stable, they return to headquarters. Elena, overwhelmed with grief, requests time off. Wing agrees. Hobie stops her at the gate. "You're really applying for leave now? At least wait until we finish this." He pleads that he shows her intercepted images, proof that the shadow may be preparing to flee the country. Hearing this, and remembering Chang's sacrifice, Elena decides to stay. She won't walk away. Not until the last piece of this case is finished, and their colleague is avenged. The following morning, Elena quietly sits by herself in a small cafe, trying to collect her thoughts. A man in an ordinary disguise slips into the seat across from her. His voice is calm as he asks, "Did you really not recognize me?" She forces a casual smile, pretending she hadn't noticed anything unusual. But the stranger peels off a false chin piece, revealing the very face she hoped never to see again, the shadow himself. Elena conceals her shock, acts like a civilian, and politely shakes his hand. He brings up her boyfriend, Chang. Elena lies with a straight face, saying he was just a metro passenger who died trying to stop a criminal. He wasn't police, she adds. Their eyes lock, no warmth, only silent hostility. At that moment, Elena notices Hobie approaching the cafe. She tries to act natural, but the shadow reads her instantly. With precise speed, he grips her neck, taps a nerve, and knocks her unconscious before rising to leave. The door slams open. Hobie steps in, blocking the exit. "This ends now," Hobie growls. What follows is a violent clash between two seasoned warriors. Tables shatter, chairs fly, and the cafe becomes a battlefield. The shadow gains the upper hand and slashes Hobie across the neck. As he prepares to finish him, Elena regains consciousness and launches herself at the shadow, forcing him back long enough for Hobie to breathe. The shadow slips out and races into the bustling street. Elena chases him, but he quickly switches his disguise and tries to blend into the crowd. Panic rises until she remembers Hobie's words, "Details never lie." She recalls the shadow's injured, bandaged hand. With sharp focus, she scans every passerby until she spots it. Without hesitation, she follows him and alerts the team. Intelligence units flood the area, blocking exits one by one. Every turn the shadow makes, a police officer is waiting. He realizes he is trapped. Hobie arrives moments later, neck wrapped in bandages but still standing strong. Seeing no escape, the shadow lets out a laugh. Half respect, half surrender. "You've grown strong," he tells Elena, extending his hands as if to give up. But it's a ruse. In a split second, he pulls a hidden blade and lunges at her. Elena reacts with lightning reflexes, dodging, disarming, and pinning him down with flawless precision. The legendary fugitive is finally captured. After years of fear and chaos, the chase has come to an end. And with that, our story closes. Another mission completed, another shadow defeated. And that wraps up today's breakdown. If you enjoyed the recap and want more thrilling stories just like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, drop a like, and share your thoughts in the comments. Spread the video with your friends and support the channel by sharing it everywhere you can. This is Starz Recapped. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.